funny, motherfucker.
Thank you. It's nice to be wanted. I must tell you, for the people in the back, it's Dick Cavett. Okay. But I can't believe that I know Groucho Marx. That he...
Hello? I must be going. I cannot stay. I came to say I must be going.
Okay. Hello and welcome to this week's comedy. Funny. Ha. And this week we have a special, and I'm coming to you from doing Old Time Radio. This week I am giving you a special post. It is An Evening with Groucho. Groucho being Groucho Marx, the legendary Groucho Marx. This was recorded at Carnegie Hall in New York City. It was hosted by Dick Cavett, and it is about 30, 35, 40 minutes long. It was all in separate pieces, so I pieced it all back together again. So basically, this is Groucho Marx telling some old stories, doing a little bit of stand-up, and basically just Groucho being Groucho and entertaining the crowd as he did so well. And of course, there's comedy, there's a little bit of music. Marvin Hamlisch performs an opening piano solo that takes about 1 minute or so to get through. So I think you will enjoy it if you're a Marx Brothers fan, a Groucho Marx fan, a comedy fan. And this didn't air, but this was recorded May 6, 1972.
Thank you. It's nice to be wanted. I must tell you, for the people in the back, it's Dick Cavett up here. I can't believe that I'm here tonight. It's not Carnegie Hall that gets to me, but I can't believe that I know Groucho Marx and that he asked me to introduce him tonight, and I'll do that as quickly as possible. I met Groucho Marx on a sunny Sunday afternoon about 12 years ago. He was coming from the funeral of a great friend of his, a man he's often said was his god, George S. Kaufman. We met on the corner of 81st and 5th, and I couldn't believe it, but he asked me to walk down Fifth Avenue with him. And we stopped every so often so he could insult a doorman. And when we got to the plaza where he's staying, I assumed that the dream was over, and I was trying to think of a way to say goodbye. And he said, in that familiar soft voice that I knew first from the quiz show and then from the movies, "Well, you certainly seem like a nice young man, and I'd like to have lunch with you." And we had lunch. It was wonderful. I went home and wrote it down as much as I could remember of it. I remember for dessert, the captain and the waiter both came over to take his dessert order. And Groucho said, "Do you have any fruit you can recommend?" to the waiter. And I don't mean the captain here. It was like that. The only sad thing about Groucho's life is that there are so many thousands of funny things that have gone unrecorded. Luckily, there was someone along at the anti-Semitic country club when they told him he couldn't use the pool. And he asked, since my daughter's only half Jewish, could she go in up to her knees? Thank you for him. There are a lot of profound things that should be said about Groucho, like the fact that his comedy achieves the level of great art, that he has all the gifts, I think, that a comedian can have. Some of them have a few of them, and he has them all. But that's for people to write about. I was asked to mention one thing. Please don't take any flash pictures. It makes Groucho dizzy, and he could, it's true, he could fall. And he wanted me to mention that, and I said, how can I say that and not alarm the audience? And he said, easy, tell them I'll drop dead if they do. So he's serious, but not when you want him to. Anyway, to get quickly to the part of the evening that you came and paid for, I would first like to introduce a few people that should be mentioned now. Among them, Rufus T. Firefly, J. Cheever Loophole, J. Cheever Loophole, so hold the applause till the end, please. Dr. Hugo Z. Hackenbush, Otis B. Driftwood, and Captain Jeffrey Spaulding, the one, the only, Groucho.
First, I would like to take a bow for Harpo and Chico. Hello, I must be going. I cannot stay, I came to say I must be going. I'm glad I came, but just the same, I must be going.
For my sake, you must stay, for if you go away, you'll spoil this party I am throwing.
I'll stay a week or two. I'll stay the summer through. but I am telling you, I must be going. I understand that some time ago, Jack Benny played the violin here at Carnegie Hall. And I thought it'd be a good idea to take this and break it over my knee and then jump on it. I've had quite enough of Jack Benny. And so is the violin. Well, let's get down to cases. How I got started in show business. I saw an ad in the Morning World, which doesn't exist anymore. And hardly do I. The ad said, boy wanted to sing. I ran all the way from 93rd Street, where I lived then, to 33rd Street, and ran up 5 flights of stairs. I knocked on the door, and a man came to the door wearing a woman's outfit. Not entirely, just lipstick. And I realized that that was the profession that I wanted to enter. I better start talking about my family first, I guess. There's quite a group of them. Can you hear me out there? You're not missing anything. Luckily, I can't hear it either. Well, I had a family. I had Harpo played the harp. That was pretty obvious. And Chico was what they used to call a chicken chaser. In England now, they call them birds, which is the equivalent of a chicken chaser in America 50 years ago. He did very well with that, too. And Zeppo was born when the Zeppelin arrived in Lakehurst, New Jersey. He had nothing to do with the arrival. My other brother, Gummo, it's not his real name. His real name was Milton. It seemed like such a silly name. And we used to call him Gumshoes because somebody had given him a pair of rubbers. In a nice way, I mean. And that's his name, Groucho Marx. My name, of course, I never did understand. I had an uncle named Julius. He was well over 4 feet. And I was named after him because we were under some peculiar impression that he had money. As a matter of fact, my father wanted to throw him out of the house. But my mother said, no. I remember I read a story once in which a man was supposed to be broke. And when he died, he left a lot of money. So they named me Julius. He never worked anyhow. He was just in the house sitting there. You find he died. And he left a will. His will consisted of a celluloid dickie, an 8-ball, and 3 razor blades. And besides, he owed my father $85, which he never did get from him. Then we had a sister. She wasn't really our sister. She was an adopted sister. The father of that sister had gotten a look at this girl and fled to Canada. And we never saw him again. But the girl stayed with us. And her name was Polly. Polly she wasn't a bad-looking girl, but her rear end stuck way out. You could play pinochle on her rear end. And Chico was the gambler of the family. He pawned everything. My father was a tailor, and a very bad one. And Chico was always short of money, and he used to hawk my father's shares. So whenever my father made a suit, of course it didn't fit. And the shares would be hanging up in the pawn shop on 91st Street. Chico got a job at Klauber Horn and Company. They used to manufacture paper, different kinds of paper. And Chico never brought home a salary because he was always in the ballroom or he was someplace, and he never brought a salary. And my father told him, he says, next week, if you come home without your salary, I'll kill you. They had a very close relationship. Chico didn't know what to do. His father was laying for him. In a nice way, I mean. And Chico entered apprehensively. And there was my father waiting for him. And Chico says, Dad, I got a great surprise for you. They had a sale today on paper. And I took the $3 that I was supposed to bring home, and I bought this paper. And my father opened it, and it was toilet paper. It was the first time we had ever seen toilet paper in Ireland. We had always used either the Morning World or the Herald Tribune. When I was real young, before that, I used to smoke it. I'd smoke it up into a small bowl and then light it. It was very good. It was a very peculiar family. I had an uncle who was a chiropodist. He would come to your house and he had a small suitcase and he would cut your toenails with 25 cents. Then he got a job. Because there's not much money in cutting toenails for 25 cents. And it was cold, it was winter. So he got a job setting fire to hotels in the Catskills. Then he was so good at this that they finally transferred him and they gave him a job in the Adirondacks, where they had much bigger hotels to bind up. He finally wound up in Sing Sing. Marvin Hamlisch. That must be you, huh? Oh, this is Marvin Hamlisch. I'm going to sing you a song written by my good friend, Harry Ruby. It's called Timbuktu. Are you ready to play this?
Always ready.
Long ago in old New Amsterdam, there lived a cousin of the Duke of Buckingham. His friends knew Buckingham to be a sport, so they cut their ham and called him Buck for short. One day Buck met a little cluck and he whispered, Ducky dear, in accents loud and clear, please marry me, my dear. She replied, I will be your bride, but there must be no delay. So they were buckled up that day. Soon they had a little bucks to know how fast they grew. There was 1 buck, 2 bucks, 3 bucks, 4 bucks, no one knows how many more bucks. Mrs. Buck would play the ukulele every morning till 2. And while old man Buck was singing, all the little bucks were bucking, ringing. When they had eggs for breakfast, Buck was out of luck. Each buck would eat a dozen eggs, and a dozen cost $1. The landlord came to raise Buck's rent, but he couldn't raise a sou. So he backed out the motor truck and he said goodbye, said good luck, and he said good luck, he said goodbye, and he to Timbuktu. I muffed a few words in there, but it's such a crazy song it doesn't make any sense. I used to live in a street called 93rd Street, and there was a girl there that I was stuck on. She was almost 15 years old, and I used to go out every morning and buy bread from my mother. And I used to get the stale bread because it was 4 cents, and the regular bread was 5 cents. So in no time at all, about 4 months, I had saved 70 cents. And I was stuck on Annie Berger. She had a great pair of legs, and I used to watch her walk upstairs. She lived on the floor above us. So one day, after I had the 70 cents, I said, why don't I take you to the theater? I had it all figured out. 10-cent car fare for 2, 10 cents for car fare coming back, and 50 cents for 2 seats in the third gallery. Now, when we got to the theater, there was Hammerstein's Victoria Theater, there was a fellow selling sauerkraut candy in front of the theater, and it was a nickel bag. And she said, gee, I'd love to have some of that sauerkraut candy. Well, I only had 10 cents left by this time. So I bought her a bag of this candy. Now, we're sitting in the gallery so high, you couldn't even see the actors. And she starts eating the sauerkraut candy. And I can hear her, and I can't hear the actors on the stage. And I could have killed her. I thought she'd offer me a piece. But she didn't. So when the show was over, by this time she consumed all the candy. And we got outside, and I said, Annie, it was cold. It was real cold. Had been snowing all that day. I said, look, you had sauerkraut candy, didn't you, in the theater? You never offered me a piece of the candy, did you? Now, I only have 5 cents left, and we got to go all the way to 93rd Street. Now, look, I care a great deal about you, but I don't want to walk to 93rd Street. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll toss a coin up, this nickel that I had left, and you holler heads or tails. She hollered heads, it came down tails, and she walked home. I didn't see her again for 10 years. Soon we were in vaudeville, and I was a German comedian with a spade beard. I was dressed like my uncle Al Sheen, with Gallagher and Sheen in those days. That was my mother's brother. I don't know if you remember him, but he used to sing, oh, Mr. Gallagher, oh, Mr. Gallagher, what's on your mind this morning, Mr. Sheen? So I became a German comedian. And we were playing in Shays, Toronto, when the Lusitania was sunk in the First World War. I was supposed to sing a song, a German song. I was afraid if I did, they were going to kill me, that audience. I'm going to sing the song for you now. I once knew a woman who couldn't spell cat. Her face was as homely as cinch. That wasn't necessary, that part.
Can I try it again?
Let's keep it on a high basis.
Oh. Can I try again? Can I get another crack at it?
Okay.
Thank you.
I once knew a woman who couldn't spell cat. Her face was as homely as cinch. In winter, she always wore last summer's hat, and a size 11 shoe was a pinch. When she played piano, strong men would faint, and weak men would cry out in grief. And as for her singing, well, it made you feel that it wasn't so tough to be deaf. But with all these things that the people would say, her voice and her looks couldn't drive them away. 'Cause, how that woman could cook. Her bread was like angel fool's cake. She could take soup meat and give it one look, and right away it was porterhouse steak. Her pfannkuchen, what a beautiful dream. Her tripe was like peaches and cream, and with the table between us, she looked exactly like Venus. Oh, God, how that woman could cook. Well, obviously, with the Lusitania laying at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, I'd have got killed if I sang that song in Canada. So I put some makeup on here, and I made myself a Jew comedian, which I'd never been. I'd never been a Jew comedian. And I sang this song. Mr. and Mrs. Klein, they lived a life so fine until the relatives came. Uncle and Tante Wolf brought all the little wolves. Like wolves, they lived up to their name. 1 week went by, Klein started to cry. It looks like the wolves mean to stay. So he told his wife one night that while they were sleeping tight, let's leave him and we'll run away. Say, it's better to run to Toronto than to live in a place you don't want to. With 20 wolves in front of me, my house looks like a menagerie. Imagine the cheek from the tante to bring all them wolves from Toronto, and oh, how they can eat at least a pound of meat. Say, they take what they want, just think what the bills will amount to. Every day they're growing more and more. They eat 1 meal a day, that's right. They start in the morning and finish at night. It's going to be a cold, cold winter, and I can't keep the wolves from the door. When I was over in London some years ago, I did a quiz show over there for a while. It wasn't too successful, but the American ambassador, he liked me because I used to be funny and crack jokes. And Jackie Onassis' sister, Razawell, you may have seen her. She's been on TV a few times. She's a very pretty girl. And she had a husband who was Polish. He was well over 4 feet. And I told him a story. This is the story. It's about a hooker. You all know what that is, I guess. I'm sure sometime in your life somebody has seen one. It was a story about a girl who picks up a Pole and takes him home and feeds him, gives him dinner. They go to bed that night, have a great time. Next morning, she helps him get dressed, puts on his uniform with his big epaulets hanging on, and he starts to leave. And she says, just a moment, what about money? And he says, a Polish officer doesn't accept money. If you remember the Second World War, because there's so many now, it's hard to keep track of them. Well, during the Second World War, Hess had been sent by Hitler to try to negotiate peace with Churchill. Churchill at that time was in the projection room at 10 Downing Street running monkey business. He sent an orderly to the door. He says, "Tell him to come back after I sing monkey business and we'll discuss business." One night at the embassy, Winston Churchill's daughter, Mary, was my dinner partner. And when the butler passed around the cigars, she said, "Take one for me." I said, "What? What do you want a cigar for? You don't smoke cigars, do you?" She says, "No, my father does, Winston. And we play a little game." I said, "What kind of a game?" "I take a cigar, and he takes a cigar, and then he bets me £1, I think was around $2.50. And we bet who can hold the ash on the cigar the longest." At this time, he was running the British government. No, you never think of a man like that. Trying to win $2 from his daughter. Speaking of vaudeville, there used to be a critic in Chicago when we played there by the name of Percy Hammond. This is about 30 years ago, I guess. He was on the Chicago Tribune. And he reviewed our act. We did a big acting. We had about 25 people in the act. And he reviewed the act. And the next morning, this was the review. He said, "The Marx Brothers and their various relatives ran around the stage for almost an hour yesterday afternoon. Why, I'll never understand." He was a tough guy. During the Second World War, years later, the Chicago Tribune correspondent had died. They had to get a new guy to go over and cover the war. And they had a big meeting one day. They had Ring Lardner there, and they had the whole staff of the Chicago Tribune. And somebody suggested sending Percy Hammond over, this critic who had reviewed our act. And Ring Lardner says, no, you can't do that. Suppose he doesn't like the war. How many of you have read the George Kaufman book? Nobody, huh? He was a close friend of mine. He was a hell of a playwright. And he was also a show doctor. And I remember one of the Bloomingdale department store family was producing a show and opening in Philadelphia. And they invited George Kaufman to come down there and see the show because it needed a little help. And Kaufman went down and sat in the second or third row. And when the show was over, the fellow from the Bloomingdales, he came down the audience and he said to George, he said, "How about the show? How'd you like it?" And Kaufman said, "Tell you what you do. Close the show and keep the store open at nights." I was playing the Palace Theater once, and Sarah Bernhardt was on the bill. She was one of the first great stars to play the Palace. She insisted on getting $1,000 in cash before she appeared. She was old at this time, but they wanted her at the Palace just the same. She used to do some scene where she used to lie in a coffin and play a dramatic scene. Oh, she was alive. She only had one leg. Did you know that? She was getting $1,000 before each performance I had 2 legs, and I was getting $50 a week. Once we were on the bill with Fanny Bryce. I'm sure a lot of you remember Fanny Bryce. She was quite a performer. And on the bill, too, there was an act called Swains, Rats, and Cats. Now, you wouldn't believe that, but that was the name of the act. And they had a miniature racetrack on the stage. And the rats were dressed as jockeys, and the cats were horses. It was an incredible act, imagine it. Teaching these cats and rats to learn all this. And they wore the uniforms, too. And one day, while they were doing the act, there was a scream came from Fanny's dressing room. And Swain ran in there. And he had a Turkish towel with him. He didn't know what he was going to... Fanny Bryce is standing on a chair, frightened to death, got her clothes way up. Swain grabs this rat. It wasn't one of the rats from his act. This was a sewer rat that had got into the theater. Well, Swain captured this sewer rat. And the next year, we played on a bill with Swain again, and this rat was now the star of the show. When we did Animal Crackers, we needed 2 minutes for a change, a scenery change. So I wrote a ridiculous poem. And I always think of whether the audience is really listening to the actor on the stage. I wrote the most ridiculous poem you could possibly write and tried it on the audience. And the first 10 weeks that we did the show, we used to get a sophisticated New York audience. And they used to laugh, and they used to applaud at the end. And then you start getting the out-of-towners, people from the Middle West. And they thought I was serious. And this is the way it goes. Did you ever sit and ponder as you walk along the Strand that life's a bit of battle at the best? And if you only knew it and would lend a helping hand, then every man could meet the final test. The world is but a stage, my friend, and life is but a game. And how you play is all that matters in the end. For whether a man is right or wrong, a woman gets the blame. And your mother is your dog's best friend. Then up came Mighty Casey and strode up to the bat. And Sheridan was 50 miles away. For it takes a heap of loving to make a home like that, on the road to where the flying fishes play. Then I used to take a chair, which the vaudeville actors used to do in those days, and I would start walking off the stage. And the last line would be, so be a real life Pagliacci and laugh, clown, laugh.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. As always, you can listen to my podcast on all podcast services. You can also go to my website, otr.duane.media, to listen to all of my podcasts. There's donation information, patron information, and more all on the website. The website is slowly improving. Thank you for your patience. It takes a while to update and add information to the website, but it's getting there. You can also find me on Instagram, duane.otr. You can also email me if you want, info@otr.duane.media. Hope you enjoyed, and until next time, stay safe, wish you well, and as always, peace.